Hey everybody, let's talk about context planning as gameplay. This is something that's niche, but it's becoming more common, so I'd like to kind of hammer it out. I'd like to talk about it and what it is and how to do it right and how to do it wrong. Now, to some extent, every game features anticipation. Oh, here comes a dragon. You won't have to fight it now, though. You get 2 hours before you have to fight it. Long enough for you to realize it's a deadly enemy that you're going to have to face down with every ounce of your power. Maybe you should buy that new sword from town, right? That kind of anticipation is baked into nearly every game. The game provides you with a context, and it says, okay, well, next you're going to fight the dragon. Here is the 3-layer dungeon you've got to get through to get to the dragon. Here are the treasure chests you can open on the way down. Here are the people you can hire, the spells you can learn, the swords you can buy. It's a very rigid context. The game tells you exactly what's up. And that's fine. It allows the devs to create a very compelling context. But not all games are like this. There are a lot of games where you, the player, choose the context. You choose your own adventure. If you play Minecraft, for example, there's going to be a section where you learn how to do all of the Minecrafty stuff. How do you put blocks? How do you fight enemies? How do you punch trees? Whatever. But once that's over, the game pretty much says, okay, go do whatever you want now. You're free to do whatever you want in this game, but it's not quite as simple as that. It's not like you go into Photoshop and doodle something up. The game has very specific rules about how things work. If you want to go to the Nether, you got to build another gate. There's our Nether gate. If you want to build a fairy tale castle, you got to build it out of bricks, so it's going to look like a very square fairy tale castle. So, your hopes of a mushroom kingdom are dashed because you can't get that mushroomy shape. These constraints, these mechanics, help the player to engage with the contexts they create. Minecraft has no concept of what a fairy tale castle is. If you try and build, a mushroom hut from Mario, the game's not going to understand what you're trying to build. So because of that, you might think that the game can't help you engage with that at all. But that's not the case. The whole point of this is that when you make context, there is planning involved. There's some kind of play involved with that context. And in this case, the play of the game is flexible enough that even if it doesn't understand what the context is, the very fact that that play exists affects how you pursue your context. You have to build it out of bricks, so you're going to have a very specific kind of shape. People can only run at specific speeds. They can only jump specific distances. These are all things which are going to determine the kind of building you can make. And if you're trying to build a fairy tale castle, the challenge there is how do you build one within the constraints of Minecraft? Even if you play in creative mode, you still have a specific category of bricks. You can't magically invent new brick shapes. Similarly, if you want to go to the Nether using a Nether gate, there's no thing in the game that's like, okay, well, this is what you do in the Nether. No, once you built the Nether gate, you're pretty much free to do whatever you want in the Nether. The Nether is unlocked, but it's not a context in specific. It's not like people go and do one thing in the Nether. There's a million things that you can do in there, and you can play it in a million different ways. You want to build a kingdom in hell? Go for it. You want to desperately try and chip away some glowing ore before you get killed by whatever monsters are roaming around? Go for it. You want to defend against hordes of enemies that might come through that gate but never really do? Great. Build a castle around that. You see, this mechanic is not the same as a dragon because it doesn't tell you how you must accomplish a specific thing. The gate just says you now have the ability to travel to a new location with these characteristics, and you can choose for yourself exactly what that means. Why are you traveling to this location? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? And the game will say, well, here are the mechanics, and you can try and accomplish whatever you want with these mechanics within the constraints that we provide. this is important. It's important to be allowed to work at your context. The planning section is as important as the context decision section. If you can choose any context, if the game has no opinion, then you're not going to be able to choose any context, because you can't choose something the game doesn't recognize or the game doesn't have an opinion on. You might as well just be, staring at the back of your hands. There's nothing going on in the game if you choose something the game doesn't know what to do with, which is why having flexible mechanics really helps, because even though the game doesn't know what a fairy tale castle is, the game offers you mechanics that will allow you to build that fairy tale castle within the game world, and the game can comment on that. And this is what a lot of games get wrong. So, as an example, there is an older game called Space Engineers, which is basically Minecraft in space. And you can build yourself whatever spaceships you want, and it's very cute. It's hugely kludgy, but it's fun, right? The thing about Space Engineers is that the gameplay is total crap. There's just nothing interesting in the game itself when you're playing the game. But the game has a lot of really good mechanics that allow you to play out your own context as you see fit, which is why if you go and you look up, I want to look up what the game he's talking about is, let's look on YouTube for Let's Players, you'll find every single Let's Player has some kind of scenario system that they've devised. Oh, here's season 3 of our survival with these 3 mods and these 8 people on this planet with no iron. Or we're building starships that are going to fight each other with this rule set in these particular situations and a maximum of these particular kinds of weapons. And the core play of Space Engineers basically doesn't exist. It's terrible. But the mechanics of Space Engineer allow players to build their own contexts so fluidly that they can create very popular YouTube series out of these incredibly crappy pieces of mechanics. So when I'm saying that context planning is gameplay, in this case it's very literal. If you try and play Space Engineers without inventing a context for yourself, you're gonna just get bored. But the game allows you to invent a context for yourself quite easily. And it has opinions. Oh, well, this ship is this hard to build. This ship can move this fast. This ship can jump. This ship can't. That allows you to get a lot done. But Space Engineers isn't the only game with this theme. There are a ton of games coming down the line, some released, some not, that have a very similar play to Space Engineers. Oh, look, we're going to land and set up a base on this weird world, and it's going to look really cool and all that jazz. And it's like, great, but that's one game. Oh, I played it. I'm done now. I can't really invent my own contexts in most of these games because the context is cemented by the game. The game is desperate to have actual good play, or at least mediocre play, and in the process, it completely locks away any freedom that I might have had to just do whatever I want. This is a terrible thing in a game that's about building, and I don't understand why games are doing it these days. I would say that nearly every game about building a modular base or spaceship in a sci-fi setting is not about context planning. It's become a situation where every single one of them is about building a very specific base. Oh, you crashed on the planet. Oh, how cool. Build a water tank, build a refinery, build a mass assembler, build a thing like this, build a thing like that, build this thing here. It's like, okay, what if I don't want to? The game doesn't have any opinion on that. It doesn't understand the concept that I might want to do something else, that I might want to do something on my own. And this is why it's really important to understand what this is. This concept is something that allows a game to be fun for tens of thousands of hours. All you gotta do is let the player decide what they want to do. And then basically just kind of follow along, offer some mechanics that will half get in their way and half help. That's the whole point. Now, if you've ever played a tabletop game, yeah, it's like that. But obviously it can't be quite that loosey-goosey because there's no human behind the curtain here. It's all a program. So you got to have those mechanics work right from the start. And I think that this is something that you can do. You just have to think to yourself, okay, how do I keep the play of my game from interfering with the mechanics of my game? Because I would like players to be able to do their own thing, which means I've got to get out of the way. I got to let them invent their own play, but I got to have the mechanics that let them do that. And that's a fun challenge. And I thought we should talk about it, so we did. Happy New Year.